Hey guys, welcome to a little introduction about how to sketch. The reason I'm doing this one is unless you have experience with sketching and stuff like that, it can be a little bit a little bit daunting when you're first starting out. The other reason is I kind of want to give you guys just a quick overview of like the steps you want to take when you first tackle any project. Okay, so let's jump in here. So these are the steps that I recommend whenever you're starting with a project. You want to start by coming up with a plan, then go out and collect the materials you need, and then finally you do your brainstorming or sketching. Okay. So the first one is to plan. Basically, what this is you're going to be creating something, right? Whether it's a magazine spread, logos, website, whatever it is that you're creating, and you want to know kind of what you're trying to accomplish. What is your message or your goal that you're trying to accomplish with this design? Understanding that is really important and key to being successful. So knowing that helps you know what it is you want to communicate, right, with this design. Your audience is who it is that you're making it for. So understanding that is really important. So, the message is what you want to communicate. Your audience is how it tells you how to communicate it. And I'll give you an example. I mean, if you're designing let's say a logo that's supposed to be used for some kind of toy for young girls, you're going to want to make sure that you know that, and that's their audience. You don't want to accidentally come across with something that might look like it would be better, used, or it'd be better that the audience. Sorry, you don't want to come up with something that looks like the audience should actually be like Harley Davidson, motorcyclists enthusiasts, right? That wouldn't you wouldn't really get the right audience when if the logo was appealed more to Harley Davidson, enthusiasts as opposed to the little girls, to little cute girls, if it's say a doll line or something, right? Or company that makes toys for little girls. So you want to know who that audience is, and that's an extreme example, but that can really help you as you're making design decisions to be purposeful, especially when it comes to things like content and images and colors and things like that. So you want to know that. And the other last one there is the parameters. You want to know, and sorry about the missing A there, and the parameters or the requirements. Specifically, like with this class, go look at the minimum requirements that they have on the project or draft pages for each of the projects. Know that. It gives you constraints to work within, but it also helps you as you're planning out and as you're doing the next two stages. So collect. So when you're getting ready to work on something, you want to collect a couple different things. For instance, maybe you want to find examples of other logos that people have made that are similar. One, because you don't maybe want to repeat what they've done, or also to give you inspiration. Same thing with like magazines. That's a really good idea for this one, to collect some stuff. So you want to start out by doing that, by doing some collecting and collect some examples, or maybe reference photos. So for instance, if you're designing something like a logo, and your logo, you want to have it be of a fox for whatever reason, then go find some photos of fox, get some photo reference of foxes, so that you're not just pulling this out of your head, because it will look a lot nicer. Even if you're going for a cartoony style with your logo, it's still going to look a lot nicer. So references, it depends whether or not you're kind of more creating something like a logo or an illustration, but you want to definitely find examples of things other people have created. You might have heard the term, like, or the phrase "artist steal like an artist." What that means isn't that you should copy exactly what someone else is doing. If you're doing that, that's dishonest. You're stealing, right? But stealing like an artist isn't stealing. It's learning from or being inspired by the work of others. It's getting ideas from others, because you don't need to reinvent the wheel every time you make something. Find out what other people are doing. It also might give you ideas of what's popular right now, and then make it yourself. Make it your own. Don't copy everything. And often, one of the best ways is to look at a lot of examples and grab some of the things you like from different designs people have done, and then use that to inspire your designs. The last thing is brainstorming and sketching. So coming up with ideas is an important part of being creative. One of the important skills for creativity is divergent thinking, and that's coming up with as many different solutions to a problem as possible. And so it's really a great skill when you're trying to create something. You want it to be more. You want to be creative with it. The more you come up with different solutions, often the more creative you can get. So brainstorming, whether you're writing out ideas, like maybe if you need to find, you got to collect content, right? Maybe you need to find some photos. You're trying to figure out what kind of photos would be good for this magazine story. Maybe you could brainstorm some. Just write out all the ideas you can have. Sketching is also a similar thing. And I'm going to show you some examples of different kinds of sketching in just a second. But sketching is just drawing out simplistic versions of what to get your ideas down on paper for what your final design will be like. So the more you do, often the better. Don't worry about whether an idea is good or not. That's like putting the brakes on while putting the gas on when you're divergent thinking. Divergent thinking is like putting on the gas pedal to move the car forward, and convergent thinking, or picking whether or not an idea is good or not, is like putting the brake on. So you won't go anywhere, and it's not good for your brain, or just like it's not good for your car when you put the brake on and pushing on the pedal full bore. So try to not worry about whether something is good or not when you're doing that sketching stage. So I'll show you some examples in just a second, but your sketches don't need to be detailed. You don't need to write out the text on the sketching, like just doing boxes and writing in the word like title there or something like that, or I draw like little lines that show body copy. That's something for magazines, you can do. Or if you need to have a photo, you don't have to redraw the photo. You just draw a box. Some people will put like an X through it, maybe write photo next to it, or write what the photo is. You can take little notes. Talk a little bit about color, your ideas for color choices, any of that stuff. Really, you're trying to come up with a design that's using contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. And this is just giving you a chance to do that without moving all these big pieces around in a piece of software that you're learning. So it's a really good idea to put some time and effort into your sketches. So right now, what I want to do is just give a really quick idea of like the steps I would take or how I use these steps in a practical situation, specifically the magazine spread. But I'm also going to show you some examples of like little sketches I did really quickly. I would like you to spend a little more time than I did on it, but this kind of the stages I like to use when I'm sketching. And I'm going to leave up how do you do your sketches to you, but give you a chance to see some examples. So please, watch this. I'll be pretty quick as I go through it. So the first thing is planning. With something like this, because it's a project, I would first go to your parameters. What are the requirements? And you can do that if you go to that page, right? You can come in here and see those parameters of what's required. Go through them. You're going to know you need to have 3 pages. One's going to have to be a spread. You're going to need to have 2 columns in your layout for your design. You're going to need to have 8.375 inches by 10.875 pages. So you got a kind of idea. It's going to be kind of similar to an 8.5 by 11 design. Not quite, but pretty similar. You need to have at least 600 words. It's going to need to be a story or article from LDS.org or the BYU Scroll website. That's the newspaper for BYU Idaho. So you're gonna have to find a story from that. So you can get that will help you with your coming up with your audience and stuff, right? So you need a pull quote, 2 images that you take the photo of. One of those images you're gonna have a wrap around with one of your images where the text wraps around it. Contrasting typography, so 2 different fonts that contrast, stuff like that. Okay. So what I would say is, what I would do is, a great place to find for this magazine project is General Conference. I picked one for my example is President Nelson's talk from last conference. The only problem with it is it's a little long. So what I did is I came in here, I found his talk online. One of the cool things about these is they have a quote already pulled out, so you could just use that for your pull quote. Also, they don't use subheadings or headings throughout the text, and you need to have a talk that doesn't have any, and then you can add in 3 of your own to practice doing that. So what I would do is copy it, and then I just brought it into Word, pasted it into Word. I even went paste, and it'll give you an option for pasting like just text only. I guess I have nothing copied. Let's say copy. And then if you come in here, so keep text only, then I don't have to worry about the formatting and stuff. And so I came in here, and then I read through it. You can see I broke it up with those are my subheadings, and figured out where some of the big headings are in there. I even grabbed the notes in case I wanted to use that for later. but it's really big. Without the notes, it's 1,600 words, so it's 1,000 more than the minimum. So it might be a little big. So I recommend maybe if you use a talk, use one of the non-apostle talks because they're a little shorter. Just make sure it has enough words. So you can grab all this. I read through it. I know that basically the message is by learning about Christ, having faith, following Him, and reaching out to Him, you can draw His power into your life, right? So how do you draw the power of Christ into your life is kind of the message, is answering that question. And then I know that the audience that I'm going to use this would be something that might be put in something like an Ensign or maybe like Elias Living magazine. So I know that it's for adults, or at least I'm picking adults as my audience. I could pick teenagers. I would just have to do some things kind of differently, right? But I know it's going to be like young adults, middle-aged adults, up to adults. So I kind of know then who my audience is, my message. I know my parameters, right? I'm going to go out and collect references. So I need to figure out, I might go find examples, and definitely agree, I would probably go find some copies of the Ensign that I can flip through and be like, hey, how did they, lay out and design things to get ideas, right? So I might do that. And then, I even have this. I found another magazine I have. It's a scouting one. So, just find examples, look through some to get some ideas, okay? And then, of course, I would need to go take some photos. Because I'm taking photos on my own, I might want to brainstorm first. So let me kind of show you this. So here's I just kind of, if you had a piece of paper, get a piece of paper out. You can see that I came in here and I just wrote out some ideas. I started thinking about power and Jesus Christ. That makes me think of a sun. So maybe I wrote the sun, sunrise, maybe a silhouette or landscape that's kind of silhouetting a sunrise or something like that. I was also thinking about some of the other subheadings, and because they're big points in it. One of them was reaching out, so maybe a hand reaching, or when it came to learning about Christ, maybe it'd be someone the scriptures or someone reading the scriptures. Okay, so these are things specifically I know I could go take photos of as well. So you got to be thinking about that. So I might start with some brainstorming. I could also brainstorm other things as well, but that's something I'd brainstorm. So then sketching. I like to do sketching in two parts. It's up to you whether you do or not. I like to do thumbnails, which are small little sketches, and I like to do as many of these as I can, and I like to refine them sometimes too. So here is just some line work so you can kind of get an idea, and it's messy. I like using a pen when I'm working on paper so I don't erase things. You can see that here's my first page, and you can see I wrote, you might be able to see I wrote the word title here. Right here I wrote the word title. Also, here's I'm going to put a drop quote that's a big letter, or a drop cap. So I have a big letter, and then I have some text right here. I'm going to have, my thing. Oh, with my image here, I'm thinking this area behind the title would be a big image, and the text might be white, so it's cutting out the back through of the background. Then right here, I know I have a text wrap, so maybe I'd have an image of a hand. You can see this is a really crappy hand, but a hand kind of popping out from the bottom, and then here's my two columns. Here's my other columns right here is my drop quote with the text maybe being white or a different color to kind of cut it out. And then I might say, okay, well, that's an idea. Let's try something totally different. So here's a 2-page spread for my first one. Here's my title. I might stick with the idea of a sunrise background with the text maybe cutting out of that background. So you see, and then here's the hand cutting out from the text. And I would play with this. I might even look at this and say, okay, well, how could I improve upon this design? And I'd make some notes, and then maybe I'd come over here and redraw it this is kind of in the middle. That's not very good. The rule of thirds, right? So maybe I'd move it down here a little ways. Then I'd have the title and my quote, and I'd make some changes that way. So then what I like to do, and you could just do a small little one, but you're gonna need to, if you're gonna do something like this, you're gonna want to do some serious notes to explain to me what's going on, so I can see your sketch and see that you were really thinking it through. So then what I like to do is roughs, which are just larger. And you can see right here, here's my rough. You can see made some of those changes, right? Here's the hand. Again, look at, this is a really crappy hand. And if all you can do for a hand, if all you can draw is that is, if that's your hand, as a stick figure hand, or if you have to draw a person like this for the photo, that's okay. Just to help you think about your design. You can see I put in some ideas for colors. And I would probably refine this a little bit more. So that's kind of, the overall design for that I'd be thinking about for this. I hope this or the process I would go through, and I hope that gives you some ideas for yours.